This is George Dionne of the Rock is George podcast, and this is a KNAC.com exclusive interview with rock and roll solo artist KEVIN STEELE, formerly of ROXX GANG and MOJO GURUS. Today we're talking about your first solo album, One Thing Left to Do, which was released on February 27th through Steele Records Amplified Distribution. After 40 plus years in the music business, why was now the time to release your first solo album?
Well, if you had asked me not even a year ago, I would have told you I was done with all this. And then I went through some hard times recently. They found a brain tumor. It was benign, thank God, but I still had to have brain surgery to have it removed. And, I was trying to remove all the stress from my life. And, rock and roll could be a pretty stressful lifestyle. But then I ran into this cat, Billy Summer, who co-produced my album, played all the guitars on the album. And he's like 10 years younger than me. And when I met him, he told me how when he was learning how to play guitar, he wore out the first ROXX GANG tape, learning those licks. And I think he wanted to kind of like pay it forward, He invited me because even though I hadn't performed in a while, I never stopped writing songs because it's a lot cheaper than therapy. And when he found out I had all these songs, he invited me to his studio, and everything just came together so quickly and naturally. 2 songs became 5, 5 songs became 10. Next thing I knew, I had an album. So here we are.
And everything's good with the brain after the brain surgery. No.
Yeah, I've had MRIs since then. No regrowth. I'm totally cool. 100% recovered.
Awesome. Now, your solo music is not much like your work with ROXX GANG. I'd say it's closer to MOJO GURUS. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, it's fair enough.
I'd say,
some of this, it's not like ROXX GANG at all. I mean, I'm not interested in being in I always hated the term hair metal, but whatever you want to classify ROXX GANG as, that was my mid-20s. I'm in my 60s now. It's like, I look back at that time fondly. I'm proud of that work, but it's not where I'm at right now. I think my musical tastes have certainly matured since then. And I like to think my writing has too. And it's just more of a reflection of where I'm at this age.
I'd say it's your troubadour, rockabilly, southern blues kind of album.
Yeah, I think it kind of incorporates all the music that I've been fond of throughout the years. There's a little punk, glam, southern rock, rockabilly, and even kind of a rock gospel song is on there.
Absolutely.
Better Day Coming.
Now, did you and Billy Summer record this traditionally in a studio, or was this a home studio kind of deal?
Well, he has his own studio. I guess you would call it a home studio. It's not in his home, but it wasn't some big. That was another thing that was so great, I'm used to recording in big studios where, like, you're looking at the clock on the wall. Oh, my God, what is this going to cost me, And I've been fortunate enough to work with some pretty big producers. Beau Hill produced the first ROXX GANG album. Jack Douglas produced one of the MOJO GURU albums. Jack Douglas, Aerosmith, Cheap Trick, New York Dolls. I mean, he was working with John Lennon when he was assassinated. And I produced some of the MOJO GURU albums, but the combination of being in a no stress environment and producing it ourselves, it was just such a relief to get away from all that. And I think it added, it was so fun, and I think that comes across in the tracks.
How long ago did you start writing this album? I know you said that you're constantly writing, but how long ago had you started to write for this particular album?
There's songs that date to right after the breakup of the MOJO Gurus, all the way up to, there's a song on the album that I wrote at the last minute when the album was pretty much done. So we had to put it on. I wrote it so last minute that the artwork had already been submitted. So we had to put it on the CD as a hidden bonus track. And it wouldn't even fit on the vinyl. Apparently, you don't get as much time on vinyl as you do on CD. So I kind of stumbled into a brilliant marketing ploy. You know, if you like the red vinyl that the album came out on, but you got to have this extra track, I guess you just have to buy both.
A lot of guys are doing that. They give you the bonus songs throughout multiple formats so you can kind of scoop them all up.
It was nothing planned. I wish I could claim it was, but.
Well, why don't we talk about some of the songs that you've released from the album prior to its release? I would say that There's a Better Day Coming is probably the centerpiece of the song. I would imagine it had something to do with your health scare and kind of the other hard times that you had.
Yeah, it's some people think it's like, because it sounds kind of like a big rock gospel song, the way I wrote it, but I'm not particularly religious. It's not about religion. It's a song about hope, because no matter who you are, or what your situation is, or what your politics are, or who you love, just to get out of bed in the morning in this ever increasingly insane world that we live in, you got to have a little hope. You know, so that's what that's all about.
You're an old guy like me, kinda. Do you think that we think that the world is this terrible place because we're exposed to more information through the internet, through multiple TV channels, through multiple media? But back in the day, we had maybe 4 TV channels in the newspaper, and maybe we didn't realize all this crap going on, but we still had a decent life and didn't think things were so bad.
I think that definitely plays a huge role, like 24-hour news, cable news. And, you know, I remember when I was a kid, my father was Republican, but he had Democrat friends and they just, sometimes I remember them kidding each other about certain issues, you know, and it was all in good-natured fun. These days, it's like hate, man. It's gotten ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like
it's really sad.
You take a side, right? It's you got to take a side today, or we hate you.
Right. I think sometimes, I think they try and pit us against each other. You know, we're easier to control that way.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that, for sure. Speaking of taking control, the song Snake Charmer is about someone that uses their wiles to take control of you. Tell me a little bit about Snake Charmer.
Yeah, that's a song as old as the original sin. You know, it's temptation versus obsession. And it's got a really cool groove. That was one of the first songs we recorded, and that's one of my favorites too. It was the first single and one of my favorites. Got a good, sexy kind of with the fuzz guitars, and I was a big fan of English glam rock, or 70s glam rock, I should say. I was way into. I wanted to be Mark Bolan when I was a kid. I loved T-Rex, Mott the Hoople. Over on this side, the New York Dolls and Lou Reed and Iggy. You know, that's the stuff I cut my teeth on. And yeah, it's got that kind of Mark Bolan kind of groove and fuzz guitars. Like, I guess I was reading one time that the Rolling Stones used to slash their speaker cones with razor blades to get that fuzz guitar back in the day when they didn't have the technology. So that's what we were kind of going for there.
And today you could just create it on the computer and plug the guitar.
Yeah. A lot easier on the gear.
Tell me a little bit about your song.
Now rock stars use razor blades for a different. They have a different use for them. I'm sorry, what are you?
Going in another direction, tell me a little bit about Sad, Sad Song.
Okay, that's kind of autobiographical. And I could tell you a story about that. I was on the phone one day with my keyboard player, Steve Peak, and I was going over the songs that I wanted him to play on and telling him, like, what I was looking for out of him on each song. And I said, I got this one last song. It's a little different than the others. It's not a rocker. It's a ballad, and it's kind of melancholy. As a matter of fact, it's called Sad, Sad Song. He says, what's that about, Kev? I said, well, it's a song about regrets and ill fortune, and all the times I let down the people in my life who I care about the most, and all the stupid mistakes and missteps and wrong turns I've made in my life. And there was like a second pause, and Steve said, so it's a long song. And that's what Sad, Sad Song is about.
So you've released the album on your own imprint, Steele Records. And
my brother has managed my career since day one, Brett Steele, and Steele Management. Now he has his own label. That's another thing that added to the whole, when you're on a major label, you have to, at least in my experience, I butted heads a lot of time with label people and producers and video directors and even other bandmates. And this time there was none of that. It was my solo record. Billy was there to get me what I want. He wanted me to be happy with the record. That was his whole thing. And so it was just such a pleasure to make it. And, it's got distribution through Amplified, so that's pretty good distribution. And, but yeah, I don't have to argue with, he's actually 4 years my junior, my little brother, so he don't tell me what to do.
Are there other guys on the Steele record label?
Well, he's had, Ramsey Lewis, who he's deceased now, but he was a virtuoso jazz piano player. And who else? Oh, Paul Reed Smith, the guitar, the guy who makes the, he put an album on Steele Records.
Okay.
And yeah.
So are there, I know you said you butted heads with like major labels. That was your experience. Was there any particular challenges kind of working on this and putting this out on your own?
No, absolutely none. And it was just so, not only was it my first solo album, but it was like, I was just calling the shots on everything. So I never had such a great experience making and putting out an album in my whole career.
That's great.
Yeah. Because, like I mentioned, I worked with Jack Douglas. So how do you tell a producer who's worked with John Lennon, like, so he comes up with some idea that you don't particularly care for, and like, hey, Jack Douglas, world-renowned record producer, I think your idea is a little screwy, it can cause, it could be awkward,
I would imagine so. The album came out on February 27th. You also had sort of an album release show down in your home state. It was at Bayboro Brewing in St. Petersburg, Florida. You performed the album in its entirety. Was this the first time you played any of the songs from the album?
Yes, it was. We did the whole album. It was a smash success, full house. I've got great reviews on the show. And then we performed the whole album. And then for an encore, I did one of our more popular ROXX GANG songs, No Easy Way Out. And I had a lot of fans there that night that were ROXX GANG fans. And they freaking lost their minds when I played that. I haven't played that song in like 25, 30 years.
I would imagine Billy was a part of your backing band that night. Who else did you have?
Yeah, I had Billy on guitar, and I had another guitar player, Matt Boyle. He's a smoker too. and Steven Tanner on drums, Lee Pons on keyboards, Jim Stevens on bass. And then there's a country song on the album that I wrote called Fingers Crossed. I've always been and we were joined for that by a pedal steel guitar player named Rob Pastore. The country song, I've always been a fan of like old school country, not the pop music with an accent that they put out these days, you know, but I like soulful, you know, Hank Williams, George Jones, all the outlaws like Merle Haggard and Waylon and Willie and Johnny Cash. So it was with those influences in mind and a tongue planted firmly in cheek that I wrote Fingers Crossed. It's a song about a lion lover.
I'm more of a Conway Twitty, Michael Nesmith kind of country guy.
Yeah.
I think Nesmith, very, very underrated. Just having the Ben and the Monkees, I think, kind of hindered him a little bit.
Right.
Do you guys have plans for more live performances?
Well, at this stage, my brother's looking into some festivals and stuff because, to be honest with you, at my age, I'm not really looking to go out there and be a road warrior, you know. So I'm looking more for like one-off things.
Should do one of those rock cruises.
Yeah, maybe. I'm kind of scared of those because you're stuck, man. You're like, how do you get away from people unless you're going to stay in your room? I don't want to stay in my room for a whole cruise, you know?
I ask guys that all the time. I'm like, well, what are these cruises like for you? I would imagine that it's just constantly people walking up to you and they're like, no, it's not that bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's worth looking into for me.
Only one guy told me he didn't like it because he gets seasick.
Seasick.
I can see that being a problem. So, since you had such a successful show at the Bayboro Brewing Company, maybe you should talk him into creating, you know, KEVIN STEELE beer.
Oh, I'm a pretty good talker, so I can be pretty persuasive, I'm told.
I want to hit the time machine on your career a little bit. Head back to ROXX GANG, which was the first rock band signed to Virgin Records America. What led to your signing with the label?
Well, back then, you know, we lived. Are you allowed to swear on this show?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, we live in bumfuck Florida. And we had to go. ROXX GANG, the guys in ROXX GANG, we were dirt poor at the time. And, you know, you hear about a lot of bands like Poison, for instance, you know, pick up stakes and move to California, move to Los Angeles. You know, we did not have the means to do that. We would get up to New York and showcase at L'Amour's. We would did everything we could to get people to come down here. And Virgin came down and saw us in the same show. Virgin Publishing also came. And the publishing guy, I think his name was Danny Golden. I can't remember. That's terrible because he was a good guy. But he turned to Virgin, to the label people, and said, well, I'm going to sign these guys to a publishing deal, whether you sign them to a record deal or not. And I think that clinched it, you know. Plus, we looked like cartoon characters back then. Yeah, ROXX GANG. ROXX GANG really suffered from bad timing. Like, ROXX GANG had started before there was no MTV. The world wasn't aware of like Motley Crue or Poison or any of those bands when we started. And like I said, my glam influences were 70s bands. And because of where we were from, it took us, you know, so late in the 80s. We got signed in 87, and then we had to wait almost a year for Beau to become available. That was one cool thing about Virgin. They had lots of money. They said, who do you want to produce your album? Well, everybody in the band was a fan of Kix, and they had just put out Midnight Dynamite, and we wanted Beau Hill. Well, I don't know if it was a good move in retrospect because we had to wait a year for them. And then it was Christmas time, and Virgin said, well, You can't release a baby band's album at Christmas time to compete against all the big boys. So by the time the album, I remember we recorded it in Hollywood at a studio called the Enterprise. And I remember sitting in the lobby watching MTV while somebody was doing guitar tracks or drum tracks or something. And I remember seeing the first Nirvana video and Soundgarden video before our album ever came out. And so, I didn't have a clue, but I mean, we were almost pretty much done before we started, because like overnight, all the program directors just went, we're not playing this kind of music anymore. We're playing this kind of music. And we managed to sell 250,000 records, but if we wouldn't have had to wait for Beau and that Christmas delay, our album would have come out almost 2 years earlier. And I think we, would have caught the tail end of that at least. And I think, in all humility, I think album would have went platinum instead of 250,000. It still would have ended pretty much when it did, when grunge came out. But my bank account would have looked a little better.
So the debut album was Things You've Never Done Before. It came out in 1988. Was waiting for Beau Hill worth it from a music standpoint?
Well, we love Beau. He was a great guy, and he had some great ideas as far as adding some keyboard stuff and some backup vocal harmony arrangements and stuff that, to be perfectly honest, we had not thought of. And I don't know. Now when I look back, I think he may have polished the album a little bit too much, that we lost a little bit of our edge. But I didn't have any regrets at the time.
Fair enough.
I really wish, I don't know if we would have waited, if we would have known it was going to take this long, if we would have known what was coming music scene wise, we certainly would not have waited.
When the album came out, did you go out on tour?
Oh yeah. All across the state. That was a Virgin right away. Econoline, the album probably cost about $250,000 to make, close to it. When we made a video, they got us Nigel Dick to direct it. He directed Sweet Child of Mine, which had just broke Guns N' Roses so huge. And that was like another $200,000. They put us in a big Econoline, out on the road. And we were living like rock stars, but you got to pay all that money back, And yeah.
Do you remember who you toured with?
We did we did some touring with Warrant, which I like the guys in Warrant and stuff, but see, I never really associated ROXX Gang with any of that California hair metal scene. I thought we were a lot darker. We weren't singing Cherry Pie or Unskinny Bop. We were like, our songs were Live Fast, Die Young, Put a Red Rose on My Grave. It was a much darker thing. And I did have a shredding guitar player, which kind of pulled my songs into that 80s kind of sound. And our look was certainly, when that Los Angeles glam scene exploded, people thought we were latecomers to the scene when actually, we had predated most of those bands. It's just no one had ever heard of us, except for our Florida following. And that kind of stuck in my craw.
I know you mentioned the changing music scene, having to wait to put the album out. I was looking at the roster of Virgin Records America at the time that you guys were signed. You were the first rock band, yes, but kind of the only one of its type. I mean, you're on the label with Paula Abdul, Lenny Kravitz, After Seven, Iggy Pop, Roy Orbison. It seems a bit of a mismatch, or maybe Virgin just didn't know what they were going to do with rock bands.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It was a double-edged sword. They had they got us everything we asked for, but I don't think they had a clue on how to promote us. You know, they've these artsy fartsy artists also like Sid Straw and all these people that like, they did. Listen to this. One of my A&R guys was Lyrique Weymouth, who's Tina Weymouth's brother from the Talking Heads. When we demoed the songs for what we thought was going to be our second Virgin album, he said, well, these are great songs, but you're not pushing the envelope enough. And this is what he played for us. This is what you need. The Divinals, When I Think of You, I Touch Myself. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, do you have any idea what we're about? You're our A&R guy. When we did the video for Scratch My Back, they loved it. They played it at this meeting of Virgin at the label, and we got a standing ovation by the label people. They loved it, absolutely loved it. But then the vice president, there was Jordan Peters, maybe, Jordan and Jeff Aroff, and they were like, but we're going to cut a few of your close-ups because no one's ever going to believe that that voice is coming out of that face, because I was much better looking back then. And the makeup helped too. And but I was like, what? Like, do you know who you're trying to sell this record to? You know, you're competing with Bon Jovi and Kip Winger and, you know, all these pretty boys, you know, like, this is not a bad thing. This is something you should be playing up. They had some strange ideas over there.
The Divinals were signed to Virgin too, I believe, at the time.
Were they?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't follow them.
For that album. And I gotta say that I really don't think the Divinals went anywhere after that particular song.
Right, but I mean, I just couldn't see the connection, you know?
They didn't even sound like that prior to that album. They actually sounded completely different, and I actually liked the Divinals prior to I Touch Myself.
Hey, it was a good song, I think, but it wasn't anything ROXX GANG would be doing, you know?
So somewhere around 1995-ish, a little after that, ROXX GANG morphed into MOJO GURUS. Was this to like signify sort of a change in sound with the changing music scene, or was it to kind of put away the past, or maybe a little bit of both?
A couple of things. Yes, the change in music scene. It got to be where like the name ROXX GANG and everything associated with us, our look and our sound and everything was just, it was becoming baggage, like, you know. And then at the same time, like I said, I wasn't writing the same kind of songs that I wrote when I was in my mid-20s, you know. And I always knew right from the start that if I was going to have a glam band, that the window of opportunity time-wise was small, you know. Like, I look at guys that are my peers that came up at the same time, same age, that are still have that 80s look, and they're still wearing, you know, a little makeup and skin tight pants, but their waistline's a little bigger now. and it's like, I don't know. I'm not going to say any names or anything, but like, it's sad, you know, like when I was a kid, I remember Gary Glitter.
Yeah.
Rock and roll. Hey, I love that song as a kid, you know? And then I saw what Gary Glitter looked like, and I was like, whoa. And I didn't want to, I mean, I've kept pretty good care of myself physically, but like, I knew from the start, I didn't want to be a, you know, 35, 40-year-old glam rocker, you know? So David Bowie didn't stay Ziggy Stardust forever, you know? So I thought, if I'm going to make a career out of this, then I'm going to have to, you know, find a way to age gracefully, you know, and hopefully my song matured, and I wanted my look to mature along with it. You know, Mick Jagger doesn't still wear spangled crushed velvet jumpsuits and stuff, you know. Ian Hunter from Mott the Hoople, like, he doesn't still wear the platform shoes and you know, the crazy suits. Like, you got to grow. And it kind of maybe to my detriment, because I'll say one thing: 80s rock fans, there are some of the most loyal people in the world, but they do not want you to change.
Nope.
And when we morphed into the Mojo Gurus, there was a lot of ROXX GANG fans that wanted nothing to do with the Mojo Gurus. And but I got to make myself happy. I've always been a very selfish songwriter. I write to please myself. How can I get on stage and perform songs with any conviction if I'm not, if they're not songs that come from my heart,
Absolutely. Do you plan to continue to make new music as KEVIN Steele, or could Mojo Gurus return at some point?
No. ROXX GANG and Mojo Gurus will never return. And since the album, in making the album, the juices started flowing again. And I've already got another 5 songs that I'm just waiting for. Billy has his own band. I'm just waiting for some time to free up. I'm going to get in there, and I don't know at this point if there'll be another album, if I'm just going to release them digitally as singles. That part of the music industry has changed so much too. That part's still up in the air, but you definitely haven't heard the last KEVIN Steele after this album. I think I may have jumped the gun calling the album One Last Thing to Do.
Do you work on any other music projects or make any guest spots or anything like that?
I have a buddy down here in Florida named Adam Turkel, who's an incredible artist. He did my cover for One Thing Left to Do, and he has a band called the New Brutarians. And I did some backup vocals on his album, and he did some backup vocals on mine. And I don't know. I'm always up for a collaboration with Billy in any of his projects, but I don't have any really concrete plans for working outside of my music. But I'm always open to new projects.
There you go. Well, KEVIN, those are all the questions I have for you today. The new album is One Thing Left to Do. It's out now through Steele Records, Amplified Distribution. Fantastic album, and I want to thank you for taking the time to tell me more about it today.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Had a good time.